Right now, I want you to look at something most gardeners have never seen in their own backyard. Imagine pressing a hand fork into dry, cracked, lifeless soil, the kind that feels like it was poured from a bag of concrete, and pulling it back up to find hundreds of fat, pink, glistening earthworms actively moving through dark, crumbly earth that smells exactly like a forest floor after rain. That transformation, that complete biological reversal of dead soil into living soil, happened in 90 days. Not 90 days of hard labor, not 90 days of expensive products. 90 days under $60 total, in a system that now runs itself permanently. That is what this video is going to show you, step by step. And I promise you, by the end of this, you are going to look at the ground in your yard completely differently than you do right now. I am your host, and this is Simple Secrets Daily. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because we uncover the biological knowledge that nobody in the fertilizer aisle wants you to find. Let me paint the full picture before we get into the system. The soil I am describing was clay-heavy, compacted, baked dry in summer, waterlogged in winter. Not a single beetle, not a single root pushing through. The kind of dirt most people stare at every spring and quietly accept as their fate, as though bad soil is a permanent condition like bedrock or weather. And what happened after 90 days in that same exact plot of ground with no tiller, no chemical fertilizer, no rototiller rental, no bags of synthetic amendments carried home from the garden center, was that the worm count went from 0 to somewhere between 8,000 and 16,000 worms. The vegetables growing in that bed doubled in yield, not improved slightly, doubled, and the soil continues to get richer every single season after that. The exact opposite of what happens with chemical fertilizer. So the obvious question is, why is not every single gardener doing this? Why does every hardware store sell bags of synthetic fertilizer and not a single one sells what actually builds soil permanently and for free? The answer is uncomfortable, and it has more to do with economics than science. This system works too well and costs too little for anyone to make a profit selling it to you. The chemical fertilizer industry generates over $200 billion globally every year. Their business model depends entirely on farmers and gardeners buying inputs every single season. A self-sustaining worm system that costs $60 once and never needs restocking is a direct threat to that model. When the marketing budgets of chemical companies outspend agricultural education by 100 to 1, the result is always the same. The simplest and most effective soil building technique on Earth gets buried under advertisements for products that actually degrade the very thing they claim to improve. Synthetic fertilizers reduce earthworm populations by 50 to 70% over time. That is not a side effect. That is a feature, because dead soil needs more product next year. Charles Darwin spent the last years of his life studying earthworms. His 1881 book made the case that worms are the single most important creature for soil fertility on the planet. He called them the unsung architects of every productive field in England. The Mesoamerican farmers who built the floating gardens that fed entire civilizations achieved crop yields double what surrounding farms produced. And their method was worm-rich organic soil built through exactly the kind of layering system this video is going to teach you. This is not radical gardening. This is the oldest system on Earth, quietly outperforming everything we invented to replace it. Now, let us get into exactly what you need and what it costs. The specific species you are working with is the red wiggler. Not night crawlers, not common garden worms. Red wigglers eat half their body weight in organic matter every single day. They reproduce faster than any other common earthworm species and tolerate the confined conditions of a garden bed system. 1 pound contains approximately 1,000 worms and costs between $25 and $40. Online vermiculture suppliers or local bait shops are your two most common sources. If you already have an existing garden bed and skip building a new raised bed, your total startup cost is $35 to $70. With new raised bed construction, $185 to $320. Annual maintenance after year 1 is $30 to $80 in mulch if you buy it, or $0 if you source your own organic matter from your yard and kitchen. Here is how you build the system, and the order matters more than most people realize. First, choose a location with partial shade. 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight. Worms avoid surface heat above 85 degrees Fahrenheit, so morning sun and afternoon shade is ideal. Avoid low spots where water pools after rain. Test your existing soil with a $10 soil test kit. Ideal pH for earthworms is 6.0 to 7.0. If your soil is below 5.5, add agricultural lime at 5 pounds per 100 square feet. If above 7.5, add sulfur at 2 pounds per 100 square feet. This single adjustment can be the difference between worms thriving and worms leaving. Now the initial soil prep. This is the one and only time you will ever till this bed. Loosen the top 6 to 12 inches with a broad fork or garden fork. Do not use a rototiller because it pulverizes soil structure. After this single pass, you will never till this bed again. Every time you turn soil, you destroy the tunnel networks the worms have built. Those tunnels are the circulatory system of living soil, and they take weeks to rebuild. One pass with a rototiller kills 50% of your worm population and erases 30 days of their work. Now the layering system. Layer 1 is corrugated cardboard laid directly on the loosened soil surface, pieces overlapping by 4 to 6 inches with any tape or staples removed. Wet the cardboard thoroughly until completely saturated. This smothers existing weeds, provides a slow-release carbon food source as it decomposes, and creates a cool, dark, moist habitat that worms instinctively migrate toward. Within 2 to 3 weeks, you will find worms concentrated right at the cardboard layer. Layer 2 goes on top of the wet cardboard. 3 to 4 inches of mixed organic matter. The ideal mix is roughly 60% carbon-rich browns like dry leaves, straw, and shredded paper, and 40% nitrogen-rich greens like kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, fresh grass clippings, and crushed eggshells. Do not add meat, dairy, or oily foods. These attract rodents, not worms. Layer 3 is 1 to 2 inches of existing garden soil or finished compost spread over the organic matter. This inoculates the bed with native soil microbes that work in symbiosis with the worms. Layer 4 is your mulch cap, 2 to 3 inches of straw, dry leaves, or shredded plant material. This regulates temperature, retains moisture, and provides ongoing food as it slowly decomposes downward. This mulch cap must be replenished every 4 to 6 weeks. When you can see bare soil through the mulch, it is time to add more. This is the single most common failure point. Gardeners add mulch once and forget. The worms consume it. If it is not replaced, the food supply disappears and the worms leave. Introduce your worms when soil temperature is between 50 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. The optimal range for reproduction is 60 to 77 degrees. A $12 soil thermometer inserted 4 inches deep gives you the exact reading. Do not dump the worms on the surface in direct sunlight. They will die or flee within minutes. Dig 3 to 4 shallow holes, each about 4 to 6 inches deep, spaced evenly across the bed. Place clusters of worms into each hole. Cover lightly with moist organic matter and immediately replace the mulch cap. The worms will distribute themselves across the entire bed within 48 to 72 hours. In the first 48 hours after introduction, do not water. The bed should already be moist from the layering process. Check moisture by squeezing a handful of material from 3 inches deep. It should feel like a wrung-out sponge. A few drops come out, but it does not pour. This moisture check needs to become a weekly habit. Overwatering is one of the 2 most common killers of first-time worm systems. If soil moisture gets too high, the worms suffocate within 48 hours. They physically cannot breathe in waterlogged soil. And now, the component that takes a 90-day timeline down to something closer to 60 days, the fermented plant juice booster. If this is clicking for you right now, drop a comment below and tell me, are you planning to try the booster or do you already have a worm system running? Share this video with someone who gardens, because most people will not find this information until their soil is already depleted. You found it. Now let us finish the build. Fermented plant juice is a concentrate of beneficial microbes, enzymes, and plant hormones created by lacto-fermenting fresh plant material. When diluted and applied to the bed, it supercharges microbial activity in the soil, which is the primary food source for earthworms. More microbes means more food. More food means faster reproduction. Here is how you make it. Harvest a double handful of actively growing plant tips, the top 6 to 8 inches of vigorous growth. Comfrey, stinging nettle, clover, or common weeds all work. Chop the material roughly and place it in a wide-mouthed glass jar. Add an equal weight of brown sugar or molasses and mix thoroughly by hand, crushing the plant material to release its juices. Cover the jar with a cloth secured by a rubber band, not a solid lid, because fermentation produces gas. Store at room temperature, 65 to 80 degrees, out of direct sunlight for 7 to 10 days. You will see bubbling by day 2 or 3. When bubbling stops and the liquid smells sweet-sour like mild vinegar, it is ready. Strain through cheesecloth. Total material cost under $2. To apply, dilute 1 tablespoon of concentrate per gallon of non-chlorinated water. Chlorine kills the beneficial microbes and defeats the entire purpose. Use well water, rainwater, or let tap water sit uncovered for 24 hours to off-gas the chlorine. Apply with a watering can directly to the bed surface at a rate of 1 gallon per 10 square feet. Apply once every 2 weeks during the growing season. One batch makes approximately 50 to 75 gallons of diluted solution, enough for an entire season from a single jar. Practitioners report worms visibly migrating toward treated areas within days of the first application. The trench method is how you feed the system long-term without buying anything. Once every 1 to 2 weeks, dig a narrow trench in the bed 6 to 12 inches deep, 4 to 6 inches wide. Fill it with kitchen scraps, vegetable peels, fruit cores, coffee grounds, crushed eggshells, tea bags, shredded paper. Cover with 2 inches of soil and replace the mulch cap. Rotate trench locations across the bed each week. Surface deposited scraps attract flies and rodents. Buried scraps decompose cleanly. Do not bury meat, bones, dairy, or oily food. These create anaerobic pockets that produce hydrogen sulfide. which is toxic to worms. Now, the biology, because understanding why this works, is what separates the people who succeed from those who give up. Red wigglers are hermaphrodites. Every individual has both male and female reproductive organs. When two worms mate, both produce cocoons. Each cocoon is a tiny lemon-shaped capsule about the size of a grain of rice containing 2 to 5 embryos. Under stable conditions, those cocoons hatch in 21 to 30 days. The young worms reach sexual maturity in 60 to 90 days and begin producing their own cocoons. Starting with 1,000 worms, you get 2,000 to 4,000 in 60 to 90 days. By month 6, you can have 8,000 to 16,000 worms in a single 4x8 foot bed. The population self-regulates based on food availability. When you trench compost and apply fermented plant juice, you remove the food bottleneck and let that exponential growth run. Worm castings contain 5% nitrogen, 3% phosphorus, and 2% potassium by dry weight, but in plant-available forms. When you spread synthetic fertilizer, 40 to 60% of those nutrients wash away before plants can absorb them. Worm castings bind nutrients to humic acids, releasing them slowly over weeks and months. Plant nutrient uptake in worm casting amended soil is 30 to 50% higher than in synthetically fertilized soil. Every worm tunnel is a channel for air and water, improving aeration by an estimated 40%. Plant roots follow worm tunnels because they are pre-made pathways lined with nutrient-rich castings. This is why practitioners report roots growing 20 to 50% deeper in worm-worked beds. Deeper roots mean better drought tolerance, better nutrient access, and stronger plants that resist disease and pest pressure naturally. Now, the honest failure points, because knowing these in advance is everything. The two most common killers are overwatering and underfeeding. We have covered both. Third is temperature extremes. Worms go dormant below 40 degrees and die if the soil freezes solid. They also die above 95 degrees. In northern climates, winter insulation with 6 or more inches of straw is non-negotiable. In southern climates, summer shade and heavy mulch are equally critical. Fourth is pests. Moles can devastate an unprotected bed in a single night. Hardware cloth on the bottom of raised beds is insurance, not optional. Fifth, ecological responsibility. Red wigglers are not native to most of North America in the wild. Keep your worms in your garden beds and never release them into forests or natural habitats. All of these failure points are manageable if you know about them before you start. The 40 to 60% of failure rate drops to 10% among gardeners who maintain consistent moisture and consistent feeding. That is the entire secret: consistency. A single 4x8 foot bed producing 50 to 100 pounds of castings per season generates real financial value. Combined with doubled crop yields, a $200 initial investment pays for itself inside one season. After year one, input costs drop to essentially zero. Labor stabilizes at 30 minutes per week. The system becomes more productive every single season, the exact opposite of chemical systems that degrade over time and demand more money every spring. The most expensive soil amendment on the market is the one you buy every year. The cheapest is the one that makes itself. Every bag of synthetic fertilizer you have ever purchased was a subscription to a system designed to keep you purchasing. Every earthworm in your soil is a tiny self-replicating factory building fertility for free, 24 hours a day, every day for the rest of your life. Darwin understood this 140 years ago. The farmers who built the Chinampas understood it 2,000 years ago. The only thing that changed is that someone figured out how to sell you a replacement for something that was already working perfectly on its own. And once you realize the replacement was always inferior to the original, there is no going back. If this video changed the way you look at the soil in your yard, hit the like button right now. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you going to try the fermented plant juice booster, or do you already have a worm system running? How long did it take before you noticed the difference? Share this video with a gardener in your life. Most people never find this until it is too late. You found it. Subscribe so you do not miss what is coming next on this channel, because the combination of this worm system with a no-dig bed structure produces yield numbers that are going to genuinely surprise you. This is Simple Secrets Daily. We will see you in the next one.